الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. الله أكبر. اللهم إياك الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Respected brothers and elders, inshallah, after the remaining nawafil, the atikaf program will commence. Inshallah, Mufti Amir Isap Sahib will be delivering a bayan, and thereafter question and answer session will take place. All brothers are humbly requested to participate. Inshallah, it will be very beneficial. Jazakum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, through the fadl and the karam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are greatly honored that today we are hosting Mufti Amir. Mufti Amir, inshallah, will be imparting some advice. Thereafter there will be a Q&A. And before we do initiate the program, I would like to call all the brothers who are at the back to come forward. And whoever is also upstairs putting away their bisters or whatever else, please do make yourself come downstairs. Right. Before we start the program, I would like to call our Imam, Maulana Ibrahim Maqbul, to initiate the program with tilawat of the Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها صدق الله العظيم.
As close as you can, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. The gathering is predominantly you guys, which is youth. So there's no point in me addressing anybody else other than you guys. So I'm going to make it focus towards you guys, so pay attention. I'm going to say things which are not intended for your brain, it's more intended for your heart, for your nafs. So if you're sat next to somebody who might distract you, I'd shift slightly. But try and really focus on what I'm going to say. The Quran that was just recited, whilst it was being recited, I heard behind me somebody say, MashaAllah. And somebody said, MashaAllah, Subhanallah. What was that person saying MashaAllah to? Was he saying it to the words that were being recited? Or was he saying it to the tune? Or was he saying it to how long that person reading was able to hold their breath? Kind of what I've been speaking about in Preston the last few days, and this is what I want to by extension speak to you guys about, is if we have reduced the Quran down to just the nice tune and the vocals and the kind of amount of time I can hold that breath, we have a problem. And I'm addressing you youth specifically because the more you live in this country and the longer you are in this country, this is something which is going to be an issue for you. So listen very carefully to this. If I reduce the Quran down to just the sounds that I hear, I have failed the Quran. This is fundamental. Understand, reciting the Quran, a very rewarding act. Spending time memorizing the Quran, a very rewarding act. But you guys need to understand that if any religion in the world was to say to you, we read our scripture, but we don't understand a word of it, you would laugh at them. You really would, you'd laugh at them. This is what we do. We read the scripture and we suffice with it being a nice tune. The guy who will recite Quran, and we're not talking about Imam Sab here now, we're talking generally speaking. The person who will recite the Quran will be the person who has the fanciest tune. The person who can hit the highest octaves. This is what me and you need to understand sitting here today. I need to develop my ability to engage with the Quran in a more meaningful manner. I'll give you an example, the verses that were recited. The verses were Shamsi wa Duhaha, very famous surah, we all know it. Many of us have memorized it. If you study a surah like this and you pick up a translation, you're going to see Allah talking about the sun. And Allah says something very strange. He says, Washamsi, I swear by the sun. And by the way, I haven't really prepared anything. I was planning on asking questions first and then letting the kind of talk follow from there. But let's engage with the verses that were recited. Allah says, I swear by the sun. That's a very strange thing to say. You have lived maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. In your entire life, you will never have heard, and you probably will not hear, any human being say, I swear by the sun. It's a strange thing to say. And then Allah says, Waduhaha, I swear not just by the sun, but the rays of sunlight. What's going on here in the Quran? Wal Qamar, I swear by the moon. Why is Allah swearing an oath by a moon? It's like saying, I swear on my mom, or I swear on my dad, or I swear on this. But why is Allah saying, I swear on the sun, I swear on the moon? Wal Layl, I swear on the night, and Wal Nahar, I swear on the day. And you've got to ask yourself, what's going on here? Now, you see, when I'm presenting the Quran to myself and I'm presenting it to students and I'm presenting it to you guys here, my objective is to kind of get you to think. And there's adults sat here who are the age of 50, 60, 70 who've never asked this question. But what's Allah talking about this over here? And what's Allah talking about this over here? And that's not to have a go at anybody. I said I'm not talking to you as a person, I'm talking to our nafs. And our nafs, you're not supposed to be nice to it. You're not supposed to play games with it. You're supposed to tell it the raw reality as it is. What takes offense is our ego. What takes offense is everything else around it. But if you strip the nafs down and say, I'm addressing you right now, This is us addressing the nafs. I'm here to understand what this Quran is about. And this is why I always say, by the way, Allah mentions this in the Quran, مَنِ اهْتَدَى إِنَّمَا يَهْتَدِي لِنَفْسِهِ. That person who commits to guidance and that person who really tries to understand, Allah guides the individual. Allah will guide that individual. Allah talks about the sun, Allah talks about the moon. I'll tell you what Allah is doing here. Allah is not interested in talking about the sun and the moon just as an idea. And if you read the translation of the verses, you'll be even more confused. Allah says, وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا. The earth, I swear by the earth, وَمَا طَحَاهَا. And whatever it was that laid it out. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا. The night, and إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا. When it envelops every single thing in darkness. And Allah is talking about these things and I have no idea. Let me explain to you. Imagine if I say to you, I walked into the house, I walked down the corridor, I opened the door, I went into the room, and then I slapped him in the face. There's a sequence of things that I've said, but notice what changed. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, and then I did this. When I'm reading Surah Al-Duha, Allah does that. He says, وَالشَّمْسِ with an alif lam. If you open up the Quran and you look after the word, there's an alif lam, وَالشَّمْس. The next verse, وَالْقَمَرِ. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. وَالنَّهَارِ, there's an alif lam. وَالنَّهَارِ وَاللَّيْلِ, there's an alif lam. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And then he says وَنَفْسٍ without an alif lam. Allah saying, I'm building this whole conversation up. The main thing is the nafs that I'm going to talk about. But then explain to me, what's the whole moon and sun and this stuff? Allah is saying that the sun first of all. And then he says the moon. Do we get confused with the sun and the moon? If somebody points to the moon and says that's the sun, and somebody points to the moon and says that's the sun, are we going to get confused? It doesn't get confusing. If you look at wal-layl and wal-nahar, you look at the night and the day, do you get confused? Allah's taking an oath on this. And when Allah takes an oath on this, He's saying it's not good enough just to read it. I want you to think about it. I want you to contemplate on it. I think someone's playing with the mic. Allah is saying, I want you to think about it and I want you to contemplate on it. That's what's being said over here. He says, what? I think that was supposed to be for the qira'ah. So that's what Allah is saying. That I want you to contemplate and I want you to think about these things. And Allah is saying, just as you don't get confused with any of these, وَنَفْسٍ, the nafs is not something which is going to put you into confusion. You're not going to get confused with the nafs. وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, and I swear by the one that put this nafs together, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah taught this nafs that which is fujur, that which is evil and sin and corruption, and taqwa, that which is good. We need to understand this fundamentally, that Allah is making clear in this surah that just as you don't get confused by any of these divine signs, your nafs, there's no confusion in this regard. You know what's right and you know what's wrong. And the more we study the Quran, the more Allah puts these examples in front of us. And Allah is teaching us that there is a right way and there is a wrong way to everything in life. Understand the Quran is not an outdated book. The Quran is more relevant today than any other time. And your responsibility as you youngsters and you youth, whether that's whatever age it is, and I would say it is just as much the responsibility of the adults and the elderly individuals as well. If you have not engaged with the Quran and you have not tried to understand the Quran, it is high time you start sitting down and seeing what this Quran is saying. I'm not talking about fiqh. I'm not telling you to study fiqh from the Quran, leave that to the scholars. I'm saying engage with the meanings of the Quran in terms of this is a book of guidance. What is Allah saying? It is so fundamental. It is so fundamental. I cannot begin to express how important this is. We listen carefully to this. There is nothing for us on this earth that allows us to engage with Allah other than the Quran. If it was not for the Quran, we had no engagement with Allah. The Prophet ﷺ is sent down with the Quran as the message that he brings. If you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ, his life was a manifestation of the Quran. So this is fundamental that we understand. That I am not here to tell you you're doing a phenomenal job. I'm not here to tell you, mashallah, you've got huffaz leading Taraweeh here. That will happen at the end of Ramadan when everybody's really excited and you'll pay the huffaz and you'll get a gift for them or something like that. I'm here to say, Our responsibility with the Quran is so much more than just reading it. It's a shame that we've just reduced it to just reading the Quran, really. And that's our responsibility. How do I engage with the Quran? Now in other mosques that I go to, I'd say maybe there's an excuse. There's not an Arabic class, or there's not an Arabic course, or there's no way you can engage with the Quran, or there's not this. Quwwat has one of the earliest Arabic classes that was started within the Preston community, and it's still continuing. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. And by the way, this is not for the scholars, this is not for the elite, this is not for the younger generation, this is for all of us. If I don't engage with the Quran, I have nothing to present in front of Allah. If my listening to Quran on YouTube is reduced down to, I like this tune and I don't like this tune, and I'm saying this to you, why? Shaitan has one responsibility. What's that responsibility? It's not to make you sin. It's not to make you sin. Because sinning doesn't mean anything. Sinning, a person can sin, make tawbah, done. Shaitan's one responsibility is to make sure you don't leave this world with iman. Listen to this carefully. The one thing Shaitan's objective is not to make me and you sin, it's to make us leave this world without faith. We're all sat here. I'm telling you, spend time with new Muslims. Spend time with new Muslims who've been kicked out of their houses, who've been thrown out of their houses, who have been given nothing in terms of the preparation, but they're willing to leave whatever it takes to come to this faith. And by the way, study the lives of the Sahaba. Every single one of them is a new Muslim. Every single companion is a new Muslim. What they went through is the story of new Muslims. When I speak to new Muslims about the Sahaba, they say that's my story. When we listen to the stories of Sahaba, we don't connect as much. You know why? Because we've not done anything that that new Muslim has done. So I've got this faith, fantastic. And I said this earlier today. You know what the prophets would advise their own children? Is everything okay? Oh, I thought there was an issue, sorry. So, you know what the prophets would advise their children? The prophets wouldn't say to their children, I want you to do tahajjud, I want you to fast like this, I want you to do this. Look, your parents are telling you, you need to read Quran, and you need to become hafiz, and you need to do this. You know what the prophets would tell their children? وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Don't die unless you're a Muslim. Don't leave this world without Islam. That's it. That's all the prophets would say. There was nothing more than that. That's our purpose. That's our objective. We want to leave this world with Islam. Our elder generation, when they make dua, they make this exact dua. That Allah give us the kalima in the final moments. The Sahaba, they weren't interested in their salah being accepted, and this being accepted, and that being accepted, and like my salah is so good. They were interested that will I even leave this world without iman? We have this blessing of faith. There is one way to preserve this faith, and that is through revelation. Shaitan has one job, to ensure we do not leave this world with faith. So you know what that means? That means one thing. Shaitan's job is to mess with our access to revelation. You have to understand the steps that I'm laying out here. Shaitan's objective is that we do not leave this world with faith. Our faith is preserved through revelation. Shaitan's objective is, let me put a barrier between this person and revelation. So what will he do? He'll reduce our revelation and engagement with the Quran down to, let's memorize. We'll have lots of people memorizing the Quran. We'll have lots of people reading the Quran. We'll have lots of people doing this. But understanding the Quran, what is my Allah saying? Translation of the Quran, tafsir of the Quran, that's for somebody else. And I was talking in Jamia Masjid when I was talking about some of these things, about some of the verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. And Allah has a proper go at the Israelite community. The Banu Israel, the Jewish community, especially prior to the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Allah has a go at everybody in the Quran, by the way. And that's the beauty of the Quran. Allah has a go at the believers, that this is what you're doing wrong. Allah has a go at the Christian community that's present. Allah has a go at the Israelite community that's present. Allah has a go at the mushrikun. And Allah's objective is out of love. Allah's objective is, how can I get this person to understand? And so Allah, when He has a go at them, one of the biggest issues Allah has with them is they didn't engage with the book. The Quran was for the elite, it's for the scholars. They'll deal with it. And I'm talking especially to the people who are sitting around the edges right now, especially the more elderly individuals within this community, because it comes down to us to take this responsibility now. that I need to pass down to my children more than the words of the Quran. I need them to know the meanings of the Quran. And Allah mentions regarding them that they would just recite the Quran. And they would just, the Quran was this thing of blessings and this thing of barakah. And that's all it was reduced down to. There are so many issues that we are faced with today. And I had a talk recently, just today at one of the masjids. And one of the questions they asked me is, as a parent, and this is going to come down to you guys who are sat in front of me, as a parent, how do I keep up to date with all the challenges our children are faced with? They're faced with this, and they're faced with that, and they're faced with that. How do I counter this ideology and the feminist movement and the red pill movement and this ideology and that ideology? You can't. You can't. You physically can't. How are you supposed to do this? How are you supposed to learn every single ideology and respond to it? That's not our approach. That's never been the Islamic approach. The Islamic approach is simple. You nurture faith according to the Quran. It's as simple as that. If we understand and learn the ideology of the Quran, that in and of itself will combat every other ideology. It's as simple as that. And how do we learn ideology? Learn the lives of the Sahaba. Learn the lives of the Sahaba. That's all it is. And so there isn't much more I have to say here. My point here is very simple and very straightforward. We have done with the Quran this act of mahjura. We have left the Quran and we have abandoned the Quran other than its sounds and other than its syllables and other than its vowels. We've left the Quran. And our objective is now, especially you guys who are youngsters, to start engaging with the Quran. Why? We are facing every single challenge out there. But there is only one miracle this ummah has. I'm telling you, there is only one miracle we have. You know when you feel good in salah? That's not a miracle. Because there are times when you will read salah and you won't feel so good. When you read Quran and sometimes you've got that tune on point and it feels good, there are times when you will recite Quran and your heart's not there. Sometimes you're fasting and it's easy, and sometimes your fasting will be hard. And I'm not talking about just you, every person. The Imam who's leading here, there are days when he has his off day. Everybody has their ups and downs. The Sahaba had their ups and downs. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'een would come and say to the Prophet ﷺ that we don't feel the same when we're not with you. We're here, we feel amazing. We go home with our family and children. And the likes of Abu Bakr and Hanzala radiallahu anhu are saying this. Who were they? They were reading tahajjud in the night, yes or no? They were reading Quran, yes or no? They were teaching hadith, yes or no? Teachers of hadith, scholars of hadith and tafsir and fiqh and all of these things, they feel that as well. Just like the Sahaba felt it. We're all going to feel this. The objective that me and you need to understand is, how am I going to work past that? We have one miracle. And the question that I posited earlier today and I'm positing here now, it's a very simple one. Why are you Muslim? Why are you Muslim? I'm not addressing you guys here only. I'm addressing the people against the wall. I'm addressing the people at home. I'm addressing myself, scholars, students, sinners, saints, everybody. Why am I a Muslim? And I'll tell you the real answer initially. It's because we were born into a Muslim family. That is the reality of it. For many of us, it's because we were born into a Muslim family. Now, there may be Muslims here who accepted Islam later on. That's a different story. But I'm addressing the vast majority of us here. We were born into a Muslim family. And so now the question is, if that is the basis of my faith, that's a very shaky basis. That's a very shaky basis. I need a miracle. And by the way, what's our miracle sometimes? When I perform salah, I feel peace. You call that a miracle? Go to churches and ask them, when you're in the church and you're singing hymns, do you feel peace? Of course we do. Somebody will say, but I saw this scholar in my dream. I saw the Prophet ﷺ in my dream and he was telling me this. Find people from the Christian faith who've seen Jesus in their dream. And they'll say, Jesus came and said this to me. Are we going to base our faith on these things? I'm trying to present to you the importance of engaging with Quran. Quran is not just, we're not even talking about changing a community. I'm talking about preserving faith. The fundamental step to preserving faith is engaging with the Quran. There is no miracle that exists out there other than the Quran for us. This is fundamental. And we understand this. Why? Because Allah puts a challenge on one place only. Allah could have placed a challenge in do this or do that. He says, bring something similar to the Quran. Meaning Muslims, you need to realize that there is nothing like this book in your life anywhere on the face of this earth. If I don't engage with the Quran in a meaningful manner, I've not engaged with the miracle. You know, the Israelites, the Banu Israel, they received miracle upon miracle upon miracle. Let me give you some examples. Musa alayhi salam was one of the prophets of the Israelites. The Israelites had lots of prophets. One of them was Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, one of the earliest miracles that he showed them was he split the sea. And I'm going to ask you to think about this. Imagine you're with Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun has been absolutely killing your family members and you're pretty much enslaved, and you see the sea split. If somebody sat here thinking, okay, that's a bit unbelievable, like how's the sea going to split? Good, that's how you should think about it. A miracle isn't supposed to make sense. If it made sense, we'd all be doing it. A miracle is supposed to be absurd. A miracle is supposed to be, that's crazy. That's kind of weird thinking. Yes, a miracle is that everything that is the norms and of what we know, Allah does something the absolute opposite of it to show that this is my prophet. So a miracle is supposed to be absurd and strange and weird and all of these things that you probably think. And that's a good thing. That proves that it's a miracle. And so he splits the sea. Let me ask every single one of us and ask internally, if you saw the sea split, what would you do? Would you ever sin in your life again after seeing this? And you walk through and you're just in absolute shock, and then it seals Fir'aun and his people within the sea. You'd get to the other side and say, Allah, I am never sinning in my life. Allah calls Musa and says, yo Musa, come and collect the Torah. Musa alayhi salam goes to collect the Torah. He comes back after 40 days. These guys are already worshipping a calf. But you wonder, now me and you will look at this and think, well, what kind of a people would do this? And we'll kind of mock it and we'll kind of laugh at them and we'll jeer and say, what a weird group of people that they did this. Allah gave them miracle upon miracle upon miracle upon miracle. Read the Quran, just at Surah Al-Baqarah from verse 40 onwards, and you'll see the amount of miracles Allah gave. Allah raised a mountain on top of them. Allah brought a group of them, killed them and brought them back to life. Allah did this, Allah did this, Allah did this. They didn't engage with the miracle. You know why? When you receive miracle upon miracle upon miracle, you become unappreciative. Anything in life you get a lot of, you become ungrateful. Anything. And Sheikh Khalid will explain this. The appreciation we have of water is nothing compared to the people in Sierra Leone. They get water and for them it's something else. They get blessings that we have, it's something else. We have lots of it. We just have to turn a faucet and we've got water flowing. And so we'll wait for a little while to make sure it's the right temperature for us. And then even after a little while, it's like, you know what, yeah, I'll make wudu, take a bit of a break in between, maybe check a message or something and then carry on my wudu. That's how we treat water. When you have a lot of a blessing, you become ungrateful and unappreciative. They had prophets upon prophets. They had miracle upon miracle. When miracles are thrown at you and you still don't accept, you know what happens? The heart gets harder. Qaswatul qalb takes place. I'm going to say something very simple here. How many individuals have sat on these chairs and on these mimbars and thrown the miracle at us? And how many times have we allowed it to enter our hearts? When the miracle is thrown at you again and again, it hardens the heart if you're unwilling to accept. This is the reality. You know, when scholars say that every talk and every lecture will become a means of for you or against you, that's what they're referring to. The Quran is our miracle. We receive so many of these miracles and we have so many lectures that we don't sit here to benefit anymore. I'm here for entertainment. That's why we're telling the Imam, I want the talk to be a bit more kind of contemporary. You know, let's make the talk a bit more kind of, relevant to today's time. And we're not interested in the verses of the Quran, we're not interested in the ahadith, we're not interested in these discussions. Because it's entertainment. Because now we're consuming our religious studies in the same place we consume our entertainment. Where we go onto YouTube. YouTube is somewhere where you kind of relax and sit back. And you kind of scroll through something to enjoy. The shorts and the TikTok and all of this is for entertainment. And when I'm now consuming Islamic material in this way, I'm experiencing it for entertainment. If there's not those jumping subtitles and that nice little humming tune in the background, and it's more than 30 seconds. Toba, I'm not interested in this. Who does this guy think I'm doing a PhD on Islam or something? And so we've made it entertainment, and that's one of the reasons we sit against the wall. That's one of the reasons we sit against the wall, because I'm not here for ihtida. There's people who need to sit against the wall. You don't get all emotional. There's a reason. If you need to sit against the wall, you sit against the wall. But man ihtada innama yahtadi li nafsi. A person who comes for guidance doesn't just put their heart before Allah. They say, Allah, I'm going to put my entire body in front of you. And that's the objective of sitting in the lecture, that you're here to show Allah, I need this. And this is the fundamental thing that we need to understand. That when we come to the Quran wanting guidance, not wanting it, needing guidance. You know why? If I don't commit to guidance, I will leave this world without faith. I will leave this world without faith. And it's a scary thing to say, but it's the reality of our conversation here today. Engagement with the Quran is the solution. I'm telling you, there isn't another solution. I wish I could have said there's this way, and I wish I could have said there's that way, and there's this way, and there's this spiritual thing you can do, and there's this thing you can read this many number of times, and you'll be guided, and your kids will be protected. But there is nothing that will preserve us other than revelation, and shaitan will do everything he can to say, revelation is not for me, it's for somebody else. I'm busy, I have commitments, I'm working, I have college. Does this guy not know I need to get my money up, and I need to make money, and I need to do this, and I need to do that? Religion is for when I get older. And so for those who have that mentality that I'll do it later on, I'll ask you a very simple question. If you've gone through university, ask yourself how many holidays that you said to yourself, I'm revising. How many times in every single holiday you said, in these holidays, I'm going to revise, I'm going to put a timetable together, I'm going to put this together, and these are the holidays I'm going to revise. How many holidays did you revise? How many holidays did we revise? It doesn't happen. People say they're going to change after marriage, and when they have a kid, and when this happens, it doesn't happen. I'm telling you, it doesn't happen. I have to do something. And I have to start now. I have to begin with my engagement with the Quran. Now, where do I start? Where do I start? It might start as simple as a translation of the Quran. So one of my preferred translations, there's a number of translations I can present in front of you. One of my preferred ones is Mufti Taqi Uthmani. And the reason I prefer Mufti Taqi Uthmani, even though I've seen Professor Abdul Halim's and Dr. Mustafa Khattab and a bunch of the other ones as well, Mufti Afzal Hussain has a really nice one as well, and there's loads. But Mufti Taqi Uthmani has a really nice one in terms of he gets a lot of those grammatical nuances that you want within the translation. And that's more a technical thing, but I like the way he does it. Professor Abdul Halim has a nice flowing translation, but Mufti Taqi Uthmani has a much more concise in terms of getting the words and the grammar perfect. That's in my studies anyway. Pick up a translation and start reading. And there'll be bits you don't understand. There'll be bits you'll have no clue about. So the translation is part of the process. Tafsir is the next element. To understand. Now listen, I'm telling you now, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to tell you something which might surprise you, but I don't think I have met a scholar who has read a 6 or 7 volume tafsir from cover to cover yet in my life. A scholar I haven't met. You know why? Because they don't. That's not how tafsirs are approached. Tafsirs are not supposed to be read cover to cover. The authors didn't write them to read them cover to cover. The authors wrote them like an encyclopedia is written. When you want to study this verse, you come and check everything on that verse. Now there may be, I haven't, from all the scholars I've spoken to, I haven't met somebody who has read cover to cover. If you're teaching the tafsir of the Quran or you're teaching translation, maybe you'll read big amounts of it. But to read a 6, 7, 8 volume tafsir like Tafsir Razi or something cover to cover, it's very rare. So this is the thing we do. We go purchase Tafsir ibn Kathir and we're like, I'm going to read this tafsir from cover to cover. But you're doing something scholars don't do. Ibn Kathir was written by him in the latter portion of his life. Mufti Shafi's translation of Ma'arif al-Quran was written when he wanted to put everything he knew about the Quran in one place. So you're trying to take all of this and your first engagement with the Quran, and you're doing verse by verse. That's how scholars approach the Quran when they're looking for certain things. That's not how we should approach it. Our approach to Quran should be thematic. What are the themes of this set of verses? What are the themes within this set of verses? What are the themes within these set of verses? Maybe I'll understand the theme of the entire surah. And there's really good works on this. Ustad Asifuddin has done a really good translation into English of a certain work that he was putting together with the Legacy Institute. And he's done a fantastic work. You can get the PDF of this, Ustad Asifuddin. It's the Quran Intensive or something like this. So that looks at a thematic approach to the Quran. What are the themes within the Quran? And then you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's how the most, in my opinion, that's the best way to approaching studying tafsir. Study a thematic approach and then go in verse by verse. And so that's how I would say begin your engagement with the Quran. It's very, very important. It's fundamental. And I will live, I'm telling you, you will live your entire life having not engaged with the Quran, and you're doing yourself a disservice, and I'm doing myself a disservice. The miracles within the Quran and the social commentary Allah makes within the Quran is unparalleled. Since September 2021, I've been studying the tafsir of Surah Yusuf. And I'm doing maybe a verse a week, 2 verses a week. We're not finished yet. And we've got to maybe 50 sessions or something like this. And it's possibly the most eye-opening experience of my life in terms of engagement with the Quran. The way Allah talks about the social kind of ideas that are so needed today. And remember, the way Allah operates is simple. The way Allah works is a phrase called archetypes. Anybody who studies psychology knows what archetypes of character and things are. Well, you'll take a case study and you look at one person and you'll see all of the kind of symptoms in this person, and then you look at a number of archetypes and you'll say, okay, all of these people have the same symptoms, let's apply it to the rest of humanity. That's how case studies work, right? Allah looks at case studies in Surah Yusuf. When you read Surah Yusuf, you're not Yusuf alayhi salam. As much as you think you're the protagonist and you're the main person in the story, that's not who you are. You are every single person. You are the brothers of Yusuf. You are the father of Yusuf. You are the woman who's struggling and trying to tempt Yusuf alayhi salam. You are the prisoners. You need to put yourself into everybody's shoes. That's how you study Surah Yusuf. Allah is teaching us from the get-go. These brothers are jealous of Yusuf. And their statements begin with jealousy and they end with uqtuluhu. Kill him. We have the potential within us to do some of the most horrible things. Allah is teaching us you really do have the potential for this. Don't think that you're looking at the brothers of Yusuf and thinking, that's not me, I wouldn't do that. That could be me and you very easily. If I don't let this nafs and I let this nafs go unchecked, I will do some of the most horrible things. And I mentioned this at Zakaria just today after Asr, and I mentioned it here, because we don't focus on the nafs. We grow up as individuals with white beards, our nafs remains a child. Think of a nursery. There's 2 children in the nursery and there's a toy in the middle. And this child is pulling at it and that child's pulling at it, that's my toy, I got it first, that's mine. Come to the masjid. There's a chair in that corner, there's a chair in that corner. That's my chair, that's mine, that's my place, that's this. Why does that happen? Is it not that everything is the same, just the circumstances have changed? It's because the nafs hasn't changed. The nafs that was in nursery is still the nafs that's coming to the masjid at the age of 60, 70, 80. Because when was the last time I sat to work on my nafs? And I said to you, I'm not here to talk to you and your bodies and your egos. I'm here to talk to our nafs. Put your nafs in front. Stop taking the side of your nafs for a second. Put your nafs on the operating table. I'm here to help my nafs and say, let's work on this. Put your nafs on the operating table. Let's stop feeding it painkillers and it's okay. And let's actually see what the problem is. How much truth is there to what's being said? When was the last time I said to my nafs, no, you're not doing this? When was the last time I said, Allah wants this from you, you're not going to do this? Take the last 10 days. Imagine Allah says, I forgive your entire life. Just this, these last 10 days of Ramadan, everybody's behaving. I will judge you on the basis of these last 10 days of Ramadan. Your entire life forgiven. 10 days of Ramadan. The Sahaba would be like buzzing. Bro, take it. What do you mean? Why are you hesitant? Why are you worried? Why are you scared? Ramadan? What kind of a believer doesn't engage even harder in Ramadan? But my nafs is like, I don't think that's a good idea. Not these 10 days. Maybe the 10 days when you were in Umrah. No, not them 10 days either. So which 10 days? Which 10 days do I have that I can present before Allah? Which week do I have? Which day do I have that I can present to Allah and say, Allah, this is the day I want you to judge me by? These are real truths that we have to ask our nafs. We're not kids anymore, guys. And the kids here, you're going to grow up into adults very quickly. It flies. Ask the people who are sat around the edges, the elderly folk. They still think they're young, but we know we're not young. We're not kids. We're adults. We're grown individuals. We're held accountable in the court of Allah. If we leave this world now, we're going to stand in front of Allah and give a solid account for everything. And there's no excuse that, Allah, I was still young. Allah, I still don't have white hairs. Allah, I'm still this, I'm still that. What are you talking about? You're an adult. This is a reality that we need to understand. And so now we're putting this nafs on the operating table. And Allah has mentioned this in Surah Al-Shams. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, which was what Manana, is it Ibrahim? Manana Ibrahim read. Manana Ibrahim recited. And Allah talks about putting this nafs at the center. And this is the operation that needs to take place. And if I haven't done anything regarding this nafs, I'm in a bit of a problem. And because I don't work on this nafs can't engage with the Quran. And so I see issues with the Quran. I see issues with the Islamic approach. I see issues with the mindset of the Quran and the thought process of the Quran. And I'm thinking, that sounds a bit misogynistic. Maybe we shouldn't mention that verse on the minbar. That sounds a bit kind of, we're kind of more of that multi-faith sort. So we don't want to mention this verse in the Quran. And because our nafs has this issue with it. And what's the issue? It's like somebody who has the illness of jaundice. If you have jaundice, everything you see is yellow. Whatever you look at, it's got like this yellow filter to it. It's easier for you guys to understand with Snapchat and all of these filters. If you put a filter over your eyes, which is a yellow filter, everything you'll see is yellow. So you'll look at the carpet and you'll say, who chose this carpet? Who chose this kind of weird yellow looking carpet? And who painted the walls yellow? And who decided, why is everything yellow here? Right? And so the issue is with your eyes, not with what you're looking at. The issue is with my nafs and my heart. If I can't engage with this Quran and take something from it, there's something fundamentally wrong with me. And so this is like a late night session. And late night sessions are often the ones where they're somewhat more relaxed. But we're not here to really relax in that sense. We're here to just ask a few questions. And these are really deep questions that we need to ask now before we are asked in the grave. How is my engagement with the Quran the one miracle that I was sent? And how much have I done to develop my nafs? Those are the questions we need to ask. Those are the questions we need to ask. And that's what I'm sitting here for. I'm literally mentioning the same things to myself again and again in different places, just to kind of get this question through to myself as well. That if I want to die as a believer, I need to get on with it. I need to start engaging with these things. Now for the youngsters, I'll give you one direct piece of advice. I was in prison on Friday speaking to not in prison, but I was with the prisoners, Sheikh Junaid from Zakaria Masjid. He was kind enough to invite me and he took me around to see kind of the prisoners and to do the Jum'ah with them and to have some conversations with them. And one of the advices I gave them, and I realized this is a timeless piece of advice from the Prophet ﷺ. If you want to change and you really want to bring genuine change, there is one thing you need to do. And this is possibly the most fundamental thing that I have seen that brings about change, and that is fixing your company. And I know you've heard this 100 times, and you'll keep hearing this, and your parents will say this to you, but now I'm speaking to you from the perspective of your parents, to the youngsters. There's so many things your parents want to say to you, but they can't. And the reason they can't say it to you is probably because they love you too much. And so I'll speak on behalf of your parents, and I'll say to you guys that you were born maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and me and your mom didn't know who you were. We had no idea about you, we didn't know anything about you. And when you came into this world, you were this ball of joy and excitement and happiness for us. And we didn't have designer clothes when we were growing up, but we gave you designer clothes and we gave you this. And you asked for this trainer and we gave you that trainer. And you asked for this Nike tick and we gave you that Nike tick. And you asked for a bottle of Prime and we gave you a bottle of Prime. And we did whatever we could to give it to you, even though it was at an extortionate price. And there are things that your parents want to tell you that we really do love you. And we brought you into this world and we tell you to perform salah and we tell you to read Quran because we know that you're going to die one day. And everything is said and done. What really matters is how you stand in front of Allah. Your parents will want to say this to you, that I don't want to see you on the day of judgment walking towards hell. Because on that day, I can't help you. On that day, I can do nothing for you. On that day, I will run from you. This is the reality. And so your parents want to say to you that everything that they are training you for is for your own good. The one thing I will say to you now from my side is fix your company. Do it now before you have to do it later. And when you're doing it later, you might be in prison, you might be there, you might be here, you might be at the bottom of a sewer after taking a certain number of drugs, you could be anywhere. Fix your company. The people you spend time with. And by the way, I'm addressing the youngsters here because they are in front of me. But if there's anybody listening, anywhere, wherever you are, if you fix your company, you've done most of the work. The Sahaba were called Sahaba. You know why the Sahaba were elite? We learn in Aqidah, we learn in our studies of Aqidah, we can never reach to the level of the lowest companion because they had suhbah. They had the companionship of the greatest of the greatest, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why they are Sahaba. That's why they are Sahaba, because of their company. And I'm telling you something here, there's a hadith of Bukhari, and there's a person who kills 100 people. And you know what his forgiveness is predicated on? Changing his company. He kills 100 people, he starts shifting and going to change his company, and he goes to a different city. And he doesn't even reach that city. And by the way, the scholars of hadith mention, he didn't make tawbah, he didn't read 2 rakats tahajjud, he didn't stand in front of Allah and say, Allah please forgive me, I've sinned. He didn't even say astaghfirullah once. He did something. Your actions speak louder than words. Him saying, I'm deleting these contacts, I'm deleting these apps, I'm getting rid of the filth that is taking me away from Allah, that is sufficient for your forgiveness to take place. Have you killed 100 people? No, you haven't. That was sufficient. He had to change his company. And I'm talking now to those people who see themselves as religious, who are involved in the circles of religiosity, who attend classes of tafsir, who attend and teach classes of tafsir, and who are talking to people and advising people and giving da'wah to people and going into khuruj and spending nights in the masjid. These individuals as well. Your company needs to be fixed, whether it's on your mobile, whether it's at home, wherever it is. The turban being and reaching the ceiling isn't going to save you. Wearing the fanciest and the most kind of prestigious Islamic clothing and putting a bisht on isn't going to save me. I need to engage with this religion as the religion is. The thing I need to do is make change. And it's not about saying, how many times have you gone to sleep and said, tomorrow I'm changing. Tomorrow I'm going to perform myself, I'm going to do it, tomorrow I'm going to change. It doesn't happen because it was just left to an intention. You have to do something. You have to do something. So I'm going to teach us something today. I'm going to teach us the meaning of the word taqwa. And wherever I go, I do this. Because the word taqwa has been reduced down to this thing, which is the fear of Allah. The word khashya is the fear of Allah. Some say it's the awe of Allah, being in awe of Allah. Some people say it means to kind of be God conscious. But even if I give it these meanings, that still doesn't mean anything to me. What does taqwa really mean? I want to become somebody of taqwa. What does this mean? Understand, it's very simple. The word taqwa, and this is why Arabic is important. This is why enrolling into Sheikh Muhammad Kabir's Arabic class is fundamental. Because if I don't engage with Arabic, I can't engage with the religion. It's as simple as that. And so what does the word taqwa mean? Taqwa comes from the word waqa yaqi wiqaya. Wiqaya means a shield. Wiqaya means to shield yourself from something. If I have 1,000 shields laid out in front of me, we all know what a shield is. A shield is something you put in front of you. If I have 1,000 shields laid in front of me and somebody comes to attack me with a sword, it's not enough that I have 1,000 shields. I just have to pick one of them up and put them in front of me. That's taqwa. What's taqwa? Taqwa is where I practically do something to stop myself from the disobedience of Allah. So somebody sat here and they say to themselves, I'm going to change. Today I'm going to change. But they take it a step further and say, it's not enough for me to say I'm going to change. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to find something which is taking me away from Allah. And often it's something on the mobile phone. And I'm going to delete that. That's taqwa. Every verse you find in the Quran that praises taqwa, everything Allah has mentioned for the people of taqwa, you are now a recipient of that. Taqwa isn't something next level and this and that. Taqwa is, I took a practical step. Go through the corpus of hadith, go through every verse of the Quran, you will find this principle. When Allah talks about those individuals in the hadith Qudsi, that you come to me a hand span, I will come to you an arm span. Who's he talking to? The religious? The religious don't go to Allah in a hand span. They throw their entire body in devotion to Allah. Allah's talking to me and you, the sinners. The people who are trying and failing, and we're not making any progress. Allah's talking to us guys. Allah's talking to me and you. Come a handspan, do that taqwa thing where you do something and I will come to you and I will do something for you. It's as simple as that. It's about doing something. It's about doing something. And that's the fundamental thing that we need to understand. That's what taqwa is. Taqwa is all about doing something. Doing something that will stop the displeasure of Allah. If I can make that intention sat here right now, I might have come because the boys were coming. I might have come because my parents forced me to come. I might have come for whatever reason. I might have come because I thought, you know what, after Taraweeh, I'm just going to chill. But if I go away with this in my mind, that I am going to make one change. I'm going to eliminate one evil from my life. It's not easy. And who said it's easy? When has anybody ever claimed it to be easy? When Jibreel saw Jannah, Jibreel alayhi salam said, everybody's going to fight to get into Jannah. Allah then covered Jannah with desires. And Jibreel said, I don't think anybody's getting in there. It's not easy to get to Jannah. But Allah says, I'll make it easy for you. I just need you to take a step. That's all it takes. In this month of Ramadan, why don't I take Allah up on that offer? But now it's not enough. It's not enough to delete one thing. Because like I said, there is one element of I need to do something and there is one element of changing my company. You've got to do both. I said this to the prisoners, I'm saying this to you, I'll say this to everybody, I'll say this to my own kids, that you have to do something and you have to fix your company. Youngsters sat here, you better sort that company out. If you are spending time with individuals who are taking you away from Allah, I'm telling you, the chances of you leaving this world with faith, you're cutting them down. You're reducing them. There's research which was conducted by Yaqeen Institute where they looked at just having a Muslim friend who is non-practicing is better than a non-Muslim friend. It comes in a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, do not befriend a non-Muslim. When we read this hadith, instantly we start, and like I said, this is the problem, isn't it? We look at a hadith and we start thinking, well, that's a bit extreme, that's a bit over the top. I mean, come on, we're a bit more thingy and this and that. But it's because we don't want to engage and try and understand what the hadith is saying. Hadith isn't saying walk past the non-Muslim and spit on them. Why do we go to extremes? Why can't we be adults when we study the corpus of hadith? Why can't we be adults when we study the Quran? The Prophet ﷺ says, wali, do not make a close friend. The person you turn to in everything a non-Muslim. Why? I'll give you a simple example. If I'm a vegan, will I ever marry somebody who eats meat? I'm a religious vegan. I don't look it, I'm not. If I'm a vegan, will I ever marry somebody who eats meat? I'm not gonna. Because this vegan thing is my thing that I'm going to take to the grave with me. And the partner I marry needs to be somebody who is completely a vegan like me. So there are things in life where we say, this is something that I will ensure my partner has. This is a non-negotiable. The most important thing for me is faith. It's a non-negotiable for me. The person who is, I'll have a work colleague, I'll have a laugh with them, I'll even go for a meal with them, no problem. But my wali, my khalil, my close friend will be nothing but a Muslim. And it sounds like an extremist thing to say, but it really isn't. Because now you've got the context in front of you, it's very obvious. If the vegan was to say, I will only spend time with vegans, we're not going to call that extremist, because that ideology is the most important thing to them. My religious identity is the most important thing for me. And now I'm telling you there's research that supports this. Yaqeen Institute research, which says very clearly that a person who has a Muslim friend who is non-practicing is better, and the percentage is like, I think 150% or something like that, more possibility of you preserving your faith than if your friend, your close friend, is a non-Muslim. That's research. If you want to talk research, talk research. And so this is, as I study this faith, it's going to tell me what things I need to do. It's going to tell me what things are going to preserve me, what things are going to save me. And that will allow me to leave this world with faith. I don't know where that conversation came from, but the point I'm making is company. Company. Fix that company. Scholars, students, sinners, saints, everybody. We've got to fix that company. The people around us, the things we're looking at, the things we're consuming, if we fix that, things will start sorting themselves out. So I need to do something, and I need to fix my company. That's it. That's it. And to assist all of this, engage with the Quran. Start studying the Quran, start engaging with the Quran. Any questions? Any questions on some of the stuff I discussed just now first? No questions? We're good to wrap up? Oh yeah, you can. I think my battery died, to be honest. My battery's died. Do you guys have a plug socket for this? I bought the charger, but I didn't have the thingy. Or you could just... Oh, you can just shout them out. Shout them out. Go on.
First question that we have is, when will the war in Palestine end, and what does it say in the Quran? Does it say anything in the Quran with regards to this? The war in Palestine.
I don't know. The question is, when will the war in Palestine end? I don't know. What was it?
What he's trying to say is, when the war actually comes, when the Muslims actually take Ghalaba, when the Muslims actually take Palestine in their hands, does it mean that the Qiyam, will that mean that Qiyam will now start?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. The question is, when will the war in Palestine end? We don't have a time frame in the Quran and the Hadith. It's possible. And by the way, I'm going to be very frank in this, right? I love question and answers for this reason. These are things of the unseen. If I posit something here, what am I claiming? I have knowledge of the unseen. Do I? What's my objective sitting here? Whatever Allah and His Messenger have told us, I'll present that to you. I don't have access to that information. If I don't have access to that information, I'll be frank, I'll say I don't know. And the answer to that question is that it's possible that the whole of the Muslim community sorts itself out, and Palestine will get amazing again even before Isa alayhi salam comes. And then it's possible 100 years after that, things will decline again. And then it's possible it'll get better again. And then it's possible it'll decline again. We don't have a time frame. We don't have a time frame for that answer. Is that clear? Again, don't hesitate to ask the question. But I'll tell you exactly as what I understand and what I know. If somebody has a different understanding, let me know.
Second question. When is it correct to stand up? When you miss your rakats and salah, when is it the correct time to stand up? Is it after the imam does both salams or after he does one salam?
When is the correct time to stand up if you've missed some rak'at and you've missed some kind of units of prayer behind the imam? When's the correct time to stand up? I mean, these are fiqh questions. If somebody had this as a pressing question, come and see your imams, man. Like, if this is a pressing question that you really have, come and speak to your imams. They're here for a reason. But khair, a person can stand up at any point. My advice is stand up as soon as you hear the second salam happening. Because I'll tell you why. In the Hanafi school of fiqh, the first salam that takes place, it's possible that imam might go into sajda of mistake, the sajda of sahwa, where an error takes place. So if you stand up and imam does first salam and then he goes back in sajda, now the next question you're going to ask the imam is, I messed up, I stood up too quickly, now what do I need to do? So what I would advise is, imam does first salam, as soon as you hear him going assalamu alaikum for the second time, you can stand up, because you know there's not going to be anything else with it. But if you want to take a risk and you live life on the edge, you can try standing up before the first salam as well. In terms of the namaz and the salah, it won't affect it, but I'm saying that you'll probably look a bit funny if you're going up and down, that's all.
Is it okay to go into cryptocurrency?
What's the fatwa that you guys give? Or do you not have a fatwa that you give? I don't know, as in, I'm okay mentioning my opinion, but it's... Yeah, so speak to your local scholars on cryptocurrency. Speak to local scholars on cryptocurrency.
So you've mentioned few readings of the Quran translation. In terms of audio, which scholars would you recommend worth listening to for tafsir? Also, would it be against adab to listen to such audios whilst you're driving on the way to work and so forth? So in terms of a little bit unethical.
Okay. Regarding, so this is a question connected to what I was mentioning in this regard, in regard to the Quran, engaging with the Quran. In terms of audio recordings of tafsir and things like this, do you have anybody in mind? So, okay, remember, there is this that I'll mention. Recently, I have benefited immensely from the work of Nouman Ali Khan. Now, there is contention in regard to his work, but remember, I'm going to be very clear in this. We are talking about tafsir which is non-fiqh related. Look, me and you, we're not getting into the fiqh. This verse says this, so what's the ruling? That's not how we're approaching fiqh. I haven't studied usulul fiqh. I don't know a word of Arabic, and now I'm going to try and extrapolate. Allah mentions this in the Quran, so this is how I'm going to do fiqh. What, you think this religion is that simple and that kind of baseline that I can just come in my English language and start imposing my understanding? I pick up a book of hadith and see one hadith and think I'm going to practice this hadith, when that hadith could have been revealed in Mecca and the Prophet ﷺ could have said something else in Medina, and I'm going to make a joke and say I'm going to practice this. I'll show you verses of the Quran that say that alcohol is fine to drink so long as it's before your salah. We're now going to start drinking alcohol. I'll show you verses that say Allah curses those who perform salah. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. But there's a context to that verse. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. And so Allah refers to specific instances in these things. So I can't take a verse of the Quran and start kind of atomistically trying to say, I'm going to practice it like this, and I'm going to do this, and with hadith I'm going to do that. Leave that to the scholars. What am I telling us to engage with? With the guidance, with the hidayah of the Quran. And so one thing I've seen from Nouman Ali Khan, he does a phenomenal job in breaking down the linguistic analysis and these kind of things. And if there's something that's questionable, come to your scholars. What's the point of having scholars? What did I say to you? Listen to this very carefully, especially the guys who are talking at the back over there, on that side. Which side of the masjid? Left side of the masjid or right side of the masjid? Yeah, that side of the masjid. So pay attention to this thing I'm going to say. And I mentioned in it about shaitan sealing revelation. This is so important. Pay attention to this. The children of a prophet, Yaqub alayhi salam's children, you know what they said about their own dad? Inna abana lafi dalalin mubin. Shall I give you a translation of that? Inna is for emphasis. Abana, our dad, lafi dalalin mubin. Our dad has lost the plot. Dalal means lost, misguided. Mubin is clear misguidance. Can you imagine the children of a prophet saying about their prophet, dad's lost the plot? Why is Allah teaching us this? The brothers had an issue. What was their issue? Their issue was dad loves Yusuf more. But dad didn't love Yusuf more. Yaqub alayhi salam did not love Yusuf more. Yaqub alayhi salam loved Yusuf because in a different way, Yusuf is a younger child. You treat a younger child in a complete different way as you treat an adult child. And you guys know this. If there's a 20-year-old and the dad comes and pulls his cheeks and says, mashallah, the kid's gonna get away, man, what are you doing? So you treat this younger child differently as you treat an adult. And actually, if you treat all your children the same, if you treat this younger child and you treat him the same way that you're now going to go over and treat this guy, that's going to be damaging to their development. You might be a bit more firm with the elderly child out of love and say, you need to find a job. But you're not going to say, yo, you need to find a job to the 3-year-old walking around. You're going to show them a different type of love. And they didn't understand this. They didn't get this idea that why is dad giving so much attention and playing with him so much, and with us it's responsibilities and we have to do this and that. Because dad wants the best for you. So their issue was what? Dad loves Yusuf more. You know all they had to do? Dad, we don't get it. Why do you love Yusuf more? And dad would have explained to them. Dad would have explained to them. You know what shaitan comes and does? If they ask their father, they'll get the solution. The illness in their heart will be fixed. So you know what he puts into their mind? Your dad, he's biased. Your dad doesn't know what he's doing. And so they come out with the words, Inna abana lafi dalalin mubin. Dad's lost the plot. Which means that now he's closed the doors to revelation. I told you the objective of shaitan is one, seal the doors of revelation. Don't let this person engage with the Quran. Don't let this person engage with the revelation. Don't let them engage with the messenger and the prophet. Now I can't go to my father and say to him, Dad, why do you love Yusuf more? Because now I know in my mind, he's going to be biased anyway. What's the point of asking him? And then in a few verses, they now get to the stage as this develops. And the word Allah uses for their kind of jealousy and all of this was kada. Kaf alif dal. The word kada in Arabic is when you're about to vomit, that feeling that you get, that's the word kada that's used. When a woman is about to come on a menstruation, you'll say kadatil mar'ah. She starts getting cramps, she starts getting emotionally, she gets in her feels, and then after a little while, the periods come out. The word kada is used when there's something within you brewing, and there's nothing you can do. People around you don't know about it, and it's about to suddenly come out, and it's going to force its way out, and when it does come out, there's no reversing. You can't reverse vomit when it's come out. You can't reverse the menses when they've come out. Allah is teaching us that they reached a stage where it was frothing and bubbling and this and that, and they let it go unchecked. Just go to the messenger. Come to the scholar. The shaitan will put a barrier between you and your scholars. He's out of date. He's this. He doesn't know this. He doesn't know that. If I don't come to the scholar, shaitan has sealed the doors to revelation. Study the story of Adam alayhi salam in the heavens. There were two people who had an objection with Allah creating Adam. The angels had an objection and Iblis had an objection. The angels came to Allah and they said, Allah, we don't get what you're doing here. Doesn't make sense to us. Which Allah is teaching us, ask questions. Can you imagine asking the creator of the universe, why are you creating human beings? They're going to shed blood, they're going to do this. Allah, why are you doing this? You're allowed to ask a question. But there's a way to ask a question. You come with adab, you come with a level of respect. You come with not, this is an I'm going to put you down, I'm going to teach, I need to learn this. I'm coming with guidance. Allah responded to their concern. Allah responded to their question. There's another guy roaming around in the heavens by the name of Iblis. He had the same question. Allah says prostrate. If he had just said, when Allah said prostrate, Allah, I don't get why you want me to prostrate. Like, I'm not saying no, I just don't understand why you want me to prostrate. You think Allah would have been unreasonable? The angels asked. It's because he decided, I'm going to seal that door to revelation for myself. What do you mean prostrate? This guy, I ain't going to do that. Aba wastakbara, he showed arrogance. So the issue with shaitan, people say it was arrogance and this and all of these things. The issue was he sealed the door to revelation for himself, and you will see throughout history, he will seal the door to revelation for every single person. If I don't see my scholars as approachable, that's not the scholar's fault. And that sounds like a really strange thing to say. Maybe the imam should do a bit more this and a bit more that and a bit more that, and maybe they should be like a bit. Okay, fine, you can have those conversations, but what do you mean you can't go to your scholar? If your doctor's not approachable, you're not going to go to him? You walk in, you can't read the guy's writing. And he just says, what's the problem? And he says, okay, this is the problem. Yeah, just probably like type something. I'm not saying Google, but check something, this, that. Okay, you need to take this, just go to the pharmacist, and that's it. How many times did he smile at you? You're not coming to the doctor because you need, you're trying to make a friend here. Now, with the imam, it's slightly different. We can have those discussions. But what I'm saying to you is, if you need something and you really need something, there's no excuse in the world that's stopping you coming and asking your scholars. Does that make sense? You need to go to them. No matter how embarrassing it is. If you have a pimple on your backside, you're still going to go to the doctor and say, I'm really worried about this. It's been there for a while now. I need to get it checked. And doctor will say, head inside and we'll take a look at it. And you're going to do it because you got to do it. What are you going to do? It's something that I need to do. So don't let shaitan seal the door of revelation for you. Come to the scholars. What was the question that was asked? It was on the tafsir thing, innit? If you don't get something, it's simple. Come to your scholars and say, I'm not sure. And you know what your scholar might say? Your scholar might say, let me take a look at this for you. Well, I'm going to work on my timetable. I need the answer now. He'll say to me, I'll get back to you on this. And he's going to go back and he's probably going to check 15 different tafsirs or 10 different tafsirs. And this is him doing personal research. You should be paying him per the hour for doing this level of research and finding out what this specific verse is referring to at this point. Remember, the scholar hasn't studied every single tafsir. I've told you this. They have the tools to engage with the verses of tafsir and Quran. And so they'll go back and they'll find the answer for you, inshallah. But you've got to access the revelation. You understand? So what was the other question? So tafsir, I found that to be beneficial. I don't know, has anybody else listened to other tafsirs which are useful that I might have heard of slipping my mind? Muhammad? English? I don't know if, I like, no, but that's different. Sheikh Sulaiman Mullah's bayans, I really like them. So I don't know if that adds anything to it, but. Oh, phenomenal. Start with that then. Sheikh Sulaiman Mullah on his YouTube has a tafsir of Surah Yusuf, Surah Kahf. Start with those. Phenomenal. I mean, I want to get some reward as well. So I have the tafsir of Surah Yusuf, which is on Telegram, which is easily accessible. Just meet one of the imams and they'll inshallah direct you. But there's Sheikh Sulaiman Mullah whose material I just generally love anyway. Very, 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 very good. Very good, very good. Those struggling with drugs or something like that, listen to his talk on drugs. Listen to his talk on drugs, very powerful. I was listening to it on a drive back, I think from Leicester or something like this. And I don't recommend listening to it whilst you're driving. You'll probably break down in tears and then you'll struggle. So, but it's a very, very powerful talk. If you know somebody struggling with drugs, take a look at that lecture of Sheikh Sulaiman Mullah, The Scourge of Drugs, SCOURGE. So the scourge of drugs, phenomenal. He's he's involved in that field, isn't it? And it's very powerful. Drugs absolutely just tear families apart, man. It's crazy, it's crazy. It's such a thing, like, obviously, you get into it because you're interested in it. There's that curiosity that everybody has. Nobody's intrinsically evil, are they? Nobody is born like, I'm just gonna riot, that's it. There's just that curiosity that I wonder what it this and I wonder what it's this. And it just leads down that route. And we know how sins work. There's no sin that you'll do in your life and you'll do it once and then be like, yeah, I'm done with it. You'd be very lucky if that is the case. But the sin is such that it just tears a hole inside your soul, and now you're going to try and fill it with more of that sin, and that hole will just keep tearing and tearing and tearing wider. It's so important we understand the kind of psychology behind sins and disobedience. So there's no. What was the other part to that question? Yeah. If you're driving and stuff like that, it's completely fine to listen to the tafsir. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're driving, you're this, you're that. The Prophet ﷺ, he would lie down with his head in the lap of Aisha radiallahu anha while she was on her periods, and he would be reciting the Quran. So there's nothing wrong with engaging with the Quran in that way. I'm talking that, for example, when you come to a lecture or you're coming to this, then in that instance there is a level of etiquette that you sit with as well, especially that. But if you're driving, there's no lack of etiquette there. Do you understand? You're driving, you're sat upright, etc., whatever. You're just driving to a location and you're listening to tafsir, etc. You're listening to Quran or whatever. I don't think has somebody said there's an issue or something?
No, like etiquette. So, for example, one question that's just called: someone's in the gym, there's music on the background, there's people doing exercise and so forth. You've got your AirPods on, listening to Quran or tafsir. Is there some guidance around?
Yeah, do that. If you're at the gym or something like that, and you've got headphones in. That's beautiful that you're listening to tafsir and there's music playing and there's this playing and you're listening to the verses of the Quran. I think that's amazing. I think that's phenomenal. As in, would there be an issue with that from a fiqh perspective or something? I don't think so. I think that's exactly what the Sharia wants us to do. That in a place where there's filth, because if you go to the supermarket, for example, and there's music playing, and you put your own headphones in, and you just want to, for example, listen to Quran or something like that, there's not going to be an issue with that. So these circumstances, etc. Now, yes, some scholars will say that there is an etiquette that you need to study the Quran with, and you need to sit in a certain way, and this and that, and with wudu and all of that. But again, so long as you're not treating it as entertainment, you're there to study something, to learn something, and you have a busy schedule or something like that, and you want to study the Quran, and this is where you're fitting it in, there's not an issue with that. There's not an issue with that. Allahu A'lam. Obviously, we can talk best case scenario. And best case scenario is in the masjid and this and that. For example, I'll give you the example of nikah. It's permissible to do the nikah outside of the masjid as well. It's permissible to do the nikah in your home if you want. The scholars will mention the best case scenario is in the masjid, a'linun nikah, all of these things that come together. It's better to do it in the masjid, but there's no kind of issue with doing it outside of the masjid, or something like that. Are we done? Questions?
Anyone got any questions?
Go on.
Is it actually allowed to go to the gym because that is free mixing, there's music, and it's not necessary, so you say it's allowed?
So long as you know how to control yourself, then it's fine. Going to the supermarket is completely permissible. And these are questions, and to be honest, I'd rather do a broader talk on this. I'd rather do a proper talk on this. I've done talks on this, I think at Salihin. Take a look at, I think on their YouTube channel, on Salihin's YouTube channel, there's male-female interactions. And it's probably on my YouTube channel as well. So check any one of them, male-female interactions in Islam. I cover a lot of this in that. There are certain times where you have to interact with the opposite gender. You need to learn how to do it in a professional manner. If you go to the shop, you know how to conduct yourself at the till. Yes or no? So you have to learn how to do that in other spheres of life as well. And there are times where you have to say, you know what, I don't need to engage in this way. Do you understand? And then all of the discussions on are we allowed to shake hands and all of this, it'll be made manifest. It's clear. No, what do you need to shake hands for? What do you need to touch another random woman's hand for? I don't see a single circumstance where you'd have to. Whatever political office you hold, there's no reason for a person to touch another woman's hand. Why? The only person's hand you should be touching is your own family members or your own wife or wives. But there shouldn't be anybody else's hand that you should be touching. So there's no excuse. And very respectfully, you can kind of say, no, thank you, sorry, I don't do this. And think about every other sphere in life. It's a matter of consent, isn't it? Yeah. If somebody comes to, if you go to hug a random woman in the street and say, that's just how I greet people, watch how quickly you get a case. It's consent. I don't consent. It's as simple as that. I'm not okay with it. In schools, my nephew, when I kind of knock him out and stuff, he comes and says, "Stop! I don't like this." I said, "Who taught you this?" It was the teachers in school that when somebody does something to you, you have to tell them, "Stop! I don't like this," as part of your kind of consent, and you make it clear to them, "I don't like this." I knock him out even more when he does that, but because obviously you're kind of rough housing. That's what they call it, and you should do rough housing with kids. You should knock them out, like mess about with them, that kind of stuff. It kind of tease them and all of these things. It's very important in developing a child's ability as they grow up. So I do it even more, but it's a matter of consent. And if you very respectfully just say, "I'm sorry, I just, I don't do that, but nice to meet you," and move on. No, 3 seconds later, she's forgotten, she's touching somebody else's hand. Do you get it? So these things, don't make a big deal out of these things. I'm telling you, don't make a big deal out of these things. Just, there's principles the Sharia has laid out. Don't ask me, how do I avoid it in a difficult situation? Use your brain. That's your job. That's not my job. My job is to tell you what the Sharia tells you. Your job is to think about a tactical way of saying whatever it is. In COVID, it was much easier. Just say, "I'm a germaphobe." Sorry, done, finished. And then touch the hand of the guy next to her and say, "When it comes to women, I'm a germaphobe." I don't know. Do what you want. But I'm just saying that as a joke, by the way. Yeah? But I'm saying that these things, if you study the principles of male-female interaction, all the rest of it kind of slots into place. Good question, though. Did I answer your question? Yeah. I answered your question. We can maybe do a talk on male-female interaction, but no, it's done now. I've done it once in Preston. Just have a listen to it, inshallah. Was there a question? Oh.
What do you do if your parents have said no to marry someone? It's a very social question. If your parents have said no to marry someone, and you really want to get married to them?
Yeah. The question is, what do you do if your parents have said no to marrying someone and you really want to marry them? There's a few things here. A person can do an undercover nikah, which is something I never do. I'm completely against it. But I mention that because I'm going to tell you something now. It sounds really exciting, but it's possibly the worst thing you can do. I could be the cool imam and say, undercover nikah. It's possibly the worst thing you can do. And I'm talking from experience in terms of interacting with so many youth. It sounds like, yeah, just do an undercover nikah, just get it done with two people that love each other. Is that what you think how marriages work? You think marriages just work between A and B and that's it? There's a whole family that takes in raising the children that you're going to have. You're going to be dating this person. First of all, let's talk about the dating scene. The fact that you've got somebody in your kind of sites that you're interacting with. So the question that I get asked all the time is, wait, are we just supposed to marry somebody after 1 meeting, after 2 meetings, after 3 meetings? When you date somebody and you're going on dates with somebody, You think you know this person? You come dressed your best. You took a shower after 3 weeks and now you put nice clothes on. You put perfume on. And now you're going to go and you're going to go to the cinema, or you're going to go here. You're going to go somewhere you really enjoy. And if you count every one of your dates you've been on with this person, you've been dressed your best, she's been dressed her best, you looked your best, she looked her best, and you were doing something you enjoy. And you think life's going to be like that? You don't know this person, but I know what their favorite color is. Oh, that's going to make your marriage? A marriage is based on the favorite color? But we have similarities. I also like sunset walks on the beach. What are you talking about? You're not even mature to even talk to a girl, let alone get married. Marriage is so much more than this. Oh, when did we become such kids in terms of this is how like a fairy tale marriage works? Marriage is going to have ups and downs. You're going to have to wake up with this person, you're going to have to sleep with this person, you're going to have to live with this person, you're going to have kids. Now it's no longer about you and this person, it's about this third party here. You need to raise this kid in the most perfect way possible. And if she wants to do something that when you're living your own life, you want to play football, you go play football, she's at her house. And when she wants to go with her friends, you're at your house. But when you're married now and there's a child, I want to go play football, but she's got some commitment that she's got to go to. And you're like, I'm not leaving my football for this kid. And are you listening to yourself what you're saying? Marriage is so much deeper. So yeah, I can say to you, sat here right now, do an undercover marriage. I'm telling you, it's possibly the worst thing you'll do. And you know what? If that marriage doesn't work out, you've alienated your parents. That's a decision you have to make. Am I willing to distance myself from these parents who will be with me no matter what? Let me tell you something. Me as a student, as a scholar, whatever you want to call it, I'm seasonal in your life. The teachers who've taught you, they're seasonal. They will help you up until a certain point. Your friends are probably the most seasonal people you'll come across. Step foot in a prison and speak to prisoners and say to them, how many of your friends have come to visit you? They'll tell you the story. Everybody in your life is seasonal except your parents. Even when your parents kick you out the house, they want you back in the next day. And they're kicking you out probably because of what you're doing to that house and how you're dragging that house down and you're making life hell for them. And you sit back and analyze the things I did to get kicked out, and you'll come back and say, if my son did a fraction of this, forget kicking him out, I would have buried him long time ago. Understand, parents are not seasonal. So you choosing this person over your parents, that's a decision you have to make. But I'm telling you, it's not a light decision, and it's a decision I would never advise somebody to make. I'm telling you, it's a decision I would never advise you to take. You need to start thinking about, look, I'll tell you straight, where's the issue in this? You approach something in the haram way, there's consequences. You engaged in this relation. Look, I'm not here to judge and have a go at you. I'm saying to you, be realistic. If I drink alcohol and I drive and something happens, that I have to be realistic and say, the crash happened as a consequence of my actions. Me dating somebody is me saying, I'm making myself vulnerable and I'm falling in love with this person. And people say it's not love, it's lust. I think it can be love. I think it can be love. You can fall into love with somebody even before marriage. But that doesn't make it justified. Who cares about the terminology love or lust and this and that? But you did something haram and you gave your heart out to somebody and now you're emotionally attached. There's a consequence to the action of yours. There's nothing I can do to fix that. But I can tell you that the decision that you're thinking of making is not the best decision. Now there might be a circumstance where you went things the halal way and this and that. The chances are you're not emotionally invested and attached to this person. Don't get yourself emotionally invested. That's why we have conversations. So when somebody says that in Islam you're not allowed to date and this and that, how are you going to know your partner? I'm telling you, date for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you're still not going to know that person. But when you sit down in front of that person and you speak to them and you ask them the real questions, how many of you who are thinking of getting married even have a list of non-negotiables? This is my list of stuff I am unwilling to negotiate on. For example, just as I gave the example of the vegan. When the vegan is getting married, their list, non-negotiable, thing number 1 is my husband needs to be a vegan. My wife needs to be a vegan. It doesn't matter. So where's my non-negotiables? Not she looks like this, her nose is like this, her ears are like this, her lips are like this. What's your list of non-negotiables? The things I'm not willing to compromise on. If you don't have that, you're not looking to get married seriously enough. Because you don't know what you're going into. The first thing you sit down and say to the person you're going to meet, you bring your list of non-negotiables, I'll bring my list. On my list it might be, I want a wife who cooks and cleans. That might be on my list. I'm not saying you have to, I'm saying that's my list. If she says I'm not okay with that, hey, let's not waste each other's time. Good luck in finding who you want, and I'll go and find. If she comes and says I want a husband who cooks and cleans, and say, well, I'm not about that life, that's fine. Let's not waste each other's time. Have your list of non-negotiables. You can put whatever you want on that list. I want somebody who's performing 5 times salah. Or I want somebody who's doing this. I want somebody who's doing this. Present those non-negotiables. Don't go into it in an emotional way and all of these things. Look for those things that really matter. How do you want to raise your kids? What do you want to do with our kids? Like, you've got to ask these realistic questions. How many of these questions have you, and then you get married, and then it turns out it's a completely different person. I'm telling you because I'm engaged. Ask Sheikh Khalid, he's probably engaged in all of these scenarios. Giggling or something, but probably not that. But how many times have you been in these situations? Wallahi, I'll tell you of an incident where somebody came to me with this. It was like 3-4 Ramadans ago, and this person was infatuated with this girl, head over heels. And I said in Ramadan, all I want you to do is disengage. That's the first thing you have to do. Disengage. And just say to her till the end of Ramadan, I'm disengaging. By the end of Ramadan, he's like, you know what? She doesn't want to do things the halal way. 2 months later, she's married to somebody else. He's moved on. But in that moment, because I understand how it works, man. You're fully invested in this person, and especially girls. You've got this whole thing planned out. What dress you're gonna wear, what clothing you're gonna wear, what perfume it's gonna be, who's gonna walk you down the aisle, and who's gonna do this and that. All of these things, you've got it planned out. But I'm telling you, it doesn't. That fairy tale marriage, it's after the wedding day. It's not prior to the wedding day. And so, approach things in a halal way. We can have these conversations in a proper session, but there is a halal way to approach these things. And it's not as outdated as you think. It's actually the best way you can approach these things. It's actually the best way. You just need to think about it. The problem is we don't think. And all we think is, how am I supposed to know somebody after 2 days? What do you mean know somebody after 2 days? You won't know them after 2 years. So what are you talking about? It's as simple as that. So let's not get really excited about these things. When you have somebody as a legitimate partner, you need to take it to your parents and you need to have a conversation with them. The chances are they're probably saying no to you because you're still a kid. You might be 24, 25, but you spend all day on the PlayStation and you spend all day doing this. You're not ready for marriage. What are you talking about? You need to level up. You need to step up. You need to get on with proving yourself. Bakhair, inshallah. I feel like I'm just having a go at people today. Khair, next question. It's okay, innit?
What's the best way to walk away from peer pressure? For example, your friends are going towards drugs and whatever else, but you're finding it hard to come out from that circle. What is the best way to come out from that circle?
Yeah. There's a kind of few questions that we can put together here. Shaitan's smart in some respects, and he's not so smart in many respects. The respects that he's smart in is the people he puts around us. So he'll say to us, my friends are getting into drugs, but I'm only there because I'm going to pull them out of it. If you're drowning yourself, you're not giving a hand to anybody. Understand, you might not be the right person to save your friends. Save yourself first. It sounds crazy, isn't it? قُوْ أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Save yourself first. Don't walk into that bar, don't walk into that club thinking, I'm going to make sure my friends don't do something. You are a friend, open. Let me give you an example. If on the day of judgment, that friend is sent into hellfire, you will try and pull this friend out until you get to the doors. Tell me you're going to walk into those doors and try and pull him out. You're going to say, this is where I leave you, bro. If you make that decision, that's on you. Let people live their consequences. That person who asked the question about their consequences, that now they want to marry this person at the expense of their parents, that's the consequences you have to live with. You now need to go through heartache and say, I'm not going to engage with this person because my family means more to me. I'm going to step back. I'm going to struggle with heartache. If I have to get therapy, I get therapy, and I'm going to get better, and then I'm going to do things the halal way. If somebody's dragging themselves into hellfire, my job is not to run in behind them into that hellfire and pull them out. If I can't swim, I'm not diving in. I'll walk next to you and advise you and say, bro, don't walk too close to the edge. Don't mess about. Don't play with the football there. When he falls in, I'll see if I can get something to throw it in. But after that, if I don't know how to swim, I'm telling you, I'm not jumping in. Well, we don't want two people drowning. I'll probably end up dragging the guy down. That's the reality of it. If you're in that circumstance, don't kid yourself that I'm here to pull this person out. Save yourself. Save yourself. Work on them. Talk to them. Advise them. Go to somebody that you care about. Come to somebody who you know will be able to speak to them and have a word with them. It's not snitching. I care about this person so much. I don't want them to be involved in this lifestyle. I need to tell somebody and say, yo, this friend of mine is going into drugs, and I know I want you to approach this in a way where it's not preachy, but I don't want them to get in trouble either. I need you to help me with this. So don't drag yourself down into sin. And so if you're in that peer pressure, that circle of friends, what are you doing with yourself? On the Day of Judgment, well, the verses of the Quran say, if only I did not make that guy a friend. Like, if only this guy, I didn't even contact him. And the word used in the Quran is fulan. The name isn't even mentioned. It's just, this guy is the reason I'm being dragged to hell. Understand what this means. And again, it starts early on, isn't it? So we're talking about a situation of somebody who's selected friends. They have to pay some consequences. I will keep telling you this. There is no easy way to extract yourself from a situation which you have put yourself into. There will be consequences. Learn from early on. I have to take responsibility for my actions. There are consequences to my actions. I made these people friends a long time ago when there was no peer pressure. And I held on to them. Now there's peer pressure. There are consequences to that. I now have to walk away, disengage. It's always disengage. But it's not easy. It's not easy. You'll get a message, you'll get a text, you'll get this, that. Oh, when did you become so religious, man? When did you start doing this? But you've just got to ask yourself why. The fact that you're asking this question means that you genuinely care and you want to. Did that come from? Where did that come from?
26-year-olds.
Male, female? Male. This 26-year-old male what's his national insurance? No, I'm joking. So, I don't want to bait anybody out. But this youngster who's asked this question, and if you're listening right now, you need to understand the fact that you're asking, and the fact that Allah allows you to ask, means that Allah wants you to do something about it. You wouldn't be listening to this, and Allah wouldn't have set these circumstances and brought some random guy with a woolly hat from London to come and sit in front of you and talk about this, and you wouldn't have got the courage to ask that question if Allah didn't want to help you in this. And the advice I give you is do what you have to come running to Allah. If He put this little rope out for you, you need to grip that with both hands and say, Allah, I'm coming. And if that means I abandon friends, I'll make a new friend circle. I like that guy, he's got a nice beard. I like this guy, he's this. I'll start talking to them. And be that weirdo who just, tags along and looks for a new friend circle. That's fine. Abandon your friends. What you want me to say? There's nothing else I can say to you. I can say to you, try and work on it and this and that. I'm telling you, it's that difficult, you'll drag yourself in. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, have we not left so many friends already? From primary school, we think these are the friends. Secondary school, half of them are gone. Secondary school, these are my friends. College, literally 90% of them are gone. College to university, I'm left with maybe 2 friends from that circle. You're going to lose friends in life. You're going to make friends in life. That's going to come and go. Why are you so attached to these friends, man? Your faith is more important. وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Don't you dare leave this world except as a Muslim. And so you've got to take those moves. You've got to make those moves. Question? Anything you want to add on that? If there's anything anybody wants to add, do let me know, yeah? Sometimes people have really good perspectives. Question or something to add? You don't like the woolly hat? You like it? You like the beard? You don't like it? I'm not your friend. Oh, he loves it. Okay. We're friends again. Don't worry. Khair. That's it?
Somebody's adamant on me asking you that steroids, is it permissible
I think the fiqh related questions we leave to local ulama. Why don't you bring the specific steroids you're using and just present it to the scholars, or take a picture of the ingredients and present it to the scholars, and just have that conversation from there. Like it's a legitimate question, right? If somebody is trying to develop some mass or something like this, and it can be for medical reasons, it can be for non-medical reasons. It's not a strange question. The question of steroids, not all steroids have to intrinsically be bad or something like that. But just bring the specific steroids to the scholars or something, or the ingredients, and just ask the question directly. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Just ask it. Don't let shaitan close the doors of revelation to you.
Leaving addiction, when it comes to whether that's drug abuse or whether that's reading film, watching film on the internet.
Drug abuse is going to require two things. Number one is the company. Number two is professional help. You can pretend and say, I don't need professional help. That's fine. There's nothing I can do to help you then. You need professional help. If you're at that stage where it's drug abuse and you're addicted and you're thinking, I can't get out of this, and if you keep telling yourself, I can get out of it, but you can't get out of it, then you need professional help. It's as simple as that. Go seek professional help, and also start changing your circle of friends. What do I keep saying about sins? There's consequences to your actions. There's no simple way. My guy, you've spent 5 years falling into drugs. There's no get out of jail free card that you can just walk out. Now you're going to have to struggle the other way. Now you're going to have to fight against your nature and your tabi'ah and your fitrah that you've spent a bit of time corrupting and ruining. That's the consequences of my actions. But know that there is a sweetness at the end of that tunnel. It's worth it. And it's worth doing it 100 times because of what you're going to get at the end of it. And you're doing it for Allah. Allah appreciates it. Allah is a shakur. So there is no easy way about this. Seek professional help. The first thing you should be doing tomorrow morning is calling some sort of a drug line or this line or whatever line there is, and start seeking professional help. If you have to start going to meetings or anonymous meetings or whatever you have to do, you need to start doing that. Is there any Muslim services that do anything locally or stuff like that? Just get in touch with Maulana Khalid. He'll direct you to some thing. He's like, I'm telling you, if you approach Shaykh Khalid or any of the Imams or anything like this with a specific situation, they're going to stand on the mimbar and start reading out your details and saying, by the way, this brother's involved in drugs, everybody make dua for them. Like this brother passed away, this person's ill and this person's involved in drugs, his national insurance number is this. And come on, man. Why are you closing the doors of revelation? I find it amazing that somebody in the 21st century, how old is this person? You don't know? 25. A 25-year-old is able to send a message in to the masjid and say, I want to get off drugs. That is insane. That's phenomenal. That is amazing. Allah loves this person so much to give you the ability to ask this question. Allah is talking about you right now in the heavens. Comes in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when you mention Allah and you remember Allah in a gathering and you're involved in that gathering, Allah is talking about you. Do you understand? That's not chance. You don't force Allah to do anything. If Allah didn't want to mention my name, He wouldn't let me sit here. Every one of us who sat here, the fact that Allah wanted to take my name, He let me sit here. If Allah hated me that much, He wouldn't even let me come here, because Allah's not going to take my name. And who's He talking to me to? The angels. The same angels that said, Allah, don't create these guys, they're going to shed blood. Allah's using me and you as evidence. You guys were saying they're going to shed blood. Look, let me talk to you about this person. And the angels are thinking, this guy is involved in drugs, and Allah wants to talk about this person because Allah loves that person. And Allah is trying to let you understand, I want you out of that. I want better for you. So you should want better for yourself. You've taken a step. Take the next step. Seek professional help. And as a community, see if you can set something up. I'm struggling in London to think of how to do this, right? There's a level of funding that's required and stuff like that. MashaAllah, you guys at Quwwat are some level of trailblazers, right? Masjid, and then madrasa, and then nursery, and then this. And so, trailblaze in this as well. See if there's some sort of a drug, something that you can do. Even the maktoum stuff, phenomenal. So, see if there's something that you can do, even if it's something small. And you guys come forward. Somebody who's involved in this kind of therapy and these kind of things, or friends of yours who are connected to this, come forward and say, we're willing to provide a service and see how it goes. Maybe it's via Zoom, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. Have some qualifications, yeah? No street pharmacist or something like this. So somebody who's legitimate, selling some drugs in a corner or something like that. None of that business. We're talking legitimate individuals. Come forward and kind of present that, inshallah. Question? Is that question for me? Oh, then you're going to have to let me hear it. Yeah. No, sorry, not bad. That's good. The question is, if I love Quran so much, that's your question, isn't it? I love Quran so much that when I go to sleep, I put the Quran on to listen to it. Is that bad? That's amazing. To fall asleep to the verses of the Quran, that's what you should want. You know how many youngsters I know who fall asleep watching YouTube and wake up when the ad plays and wakes them up? Go to sleep listening to the Quran, that's phenomenal. Parents should do that. Have your kids listening to Quran as they're going to sleep. That's phenomenal. Is that what you do? Are you in i'tikaf? So you're going to be playing the... Okay, okay. That's like he's going to fall asleep and he's going to have his Quran playing and everyone's going to be staying awake. No worries, inshallah. Any other questions? You don't have local imams here? When did you have that question? Ask him afterwards. Okay? You know what his name is? Ask him afterwards, inshallah. It's a good question. You guys should get into the habit of asking your local imams, isn't it? The guy sitting here, he's boring, man. I look cool because I got a woolly hat on. But the real people that are going to make a change in your community aren't the random people that come and sit here. For me to come and here and give a talk is easy. I'll tell you all the problems with you and leave the solutions to somebody else. That's what I do, isn't it? So that's why the guy talking here sounds really cool, because he's just throwing problems. He's not going to give solutions. The solutions are going to come when you engage with your scholars and you work together as a community. It's a two-way thing. You've got to work on it's a two-way operation, and then inshallah you'll see change. So come to your local scholar afterwards and ask him, inshallah. Any other questions? Is that what we're done now? Anything on there or no? Nothing? Khair, inshallah. Who's in i'tikaf? Just a wave of hands quickly. One. Just quickly. Are you confiscating phones? No, because we're thinking of doing an i'tikaf next week in London. We're confiscating phones for the full 24 hours. Yeah. As in, I would personally. The objective of i'tikaf is that, by the way. Those of you who think like, yeah, this guy's a bit extreme and this and that is confiscating our phones. The objective of i'tikaf is to disconnect from every single person and to connect with Allah. If you have your mobile, you're not disconnected. You're just not. You can pretend and you can say, yeah, nah, I can put it in airplane mode and I can put it in do not disturb, and you feel this good feeling just knowing your mobile's there. You need to just leave the mobile somewhere else. Lock it up, put people's names on them and get rid of them. That's proper i'tikaf. And then when you finish your salah, you're not waiting, did I get a text message? Did I get this? And if you're really worried about somebody dying or some urgent something, there's a masjid phone number. If something happens, somebody dies, don't worry, somebody will call and let you know. They're not going to leave you in i'tikaf and you're not going to get the news or something like that. They will let you know, don't worry. And it's 24 hours, it's not that thingy. But that's how, and in London to say to people, no phones, but they do, alhamdulillah. And they benefit, they see the benefit. So yeah. I'tikaf should be very regimented. You have your banter, you have your laughs in the night and stuff like that, but it should be regimented in a way that they get to see the benefits of it. And I think I saw some hands over here going up, so maybe two different age groups of i'tikaf, like an 18 plus i'tikaf and like maybe a 16 plus i'tikaf or something like that, so they can have it a bit more relaxed, and these guys you can have a proper go at them, the 18 plus, khair, inshallah. Are we done? I have till Fajr, so. Okay, everybody worked out their zakah and stuff and distributed their zakah? Okay, make sure you do that, inshallah. It's not a Ramadan thing, but if you haven't, then you should. I'll be in this corner if anybody wants to ask anything, inshallah. So if anybody wants to ask anything, I'll be in this corner. If you've got any comments or suggestions or anything like that, I'll be in that corner, especially the one who has an issue with my woolly hat. Come see me in this corner, inshallah. I'll sort you out, inshallah. Khair, inshallah. We'll wrap it up there, inshallah. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Look, the religion is not difficult. The religion is easy. Allah wants ease for you. Allah wants good for you. Allah loves you. I'll finish the conversation from your parents. I said to you youngsters that your parents want to say lots of things to you. I'll tell you the last thing they want to say to you. You want me to carry on? Carry on for 2 minutes. The food hasn't arrived yet. Okay, is that what you're saying? Okay, no worries. 2 minutes is going to become, no, I want. The last thing I'm going to say to you is, as much as your parents love you, there's somebody who loves you more. There's somebody who loves you so much more, and that's Allah. Nobody loves you more than Allah. Nobody wants to see you succeed more than Allah. So tonight, those of you in i'tikaf, turn to that Allah who loves you and raise your hands to Him and say to Him, Allah, you're the one who brought me into your house. Nobody's walking into my house unless I'm putting them there. Nobody walks into the house of Allah and sleeps over unless Allah wants them there. If you're Allah's guest, be very careful you don't disobey Allah in His house. And show Allah that you're here for guidance. Yeah? So those of you in i'tikaf, make sure that you engage with the i'tikaf. Follow the timetable that's set. It's for your own good. Do you understand? The people who are setting the timetable, they've got homes to go to as well. They want to chill at home as well. But they're putting this time in for me and you to benefit. And so let's properly, inshallah, benefit, inshallah. I'll be in this corner if anybody has any questions. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Before we go, everyone is requested that please make yourselves go upstairs. Inshallah, food will be served. After that, the mu'takifeen are requested that come back after you eat to the main masjid, and inshallah your timetable will be explained to you. We will have a small little talk, no more than 10 minutes. Thereafter we're going to do the tilawat of the Quran. Thereafter do a little bit of dhikr. Thereafter you can have a little bit of a rest, and inshallah tahajjud, dua, and then sahri. This will be the timetable. Again, we can go for food right now. After that, please do come downstairs, whoever is in i'tikaf. And all those people, not only who are in i'tikaf, all those people who are going to stay here till Fajr namaz. Whoever is going to stay here till Fajr is also requested that come to the main masjid hall. Jazakumullah.